Now let's move on to analyzing the legs in this position. If we look at this stance, the weight is mostly in the rear leg is how it's performed in most lineages, and there's very little weight in the front foot. So a common cue or check is to be able to lift up the front leg in this position. And since the weight is mostly on the rear leg, we'll focus our analysis on the muscles in the rear leg that is holding up the weight of the body. So we have gravity working down the body from the center, pushing downwards, and this is pushing the body into further flexion. So as a result, the glutes in the rear of the body are activated to prevent further flexion and help extension in the leg. And then on the front of the leg, the quadriceps will be activated to prevent knee flexion. And so the quadricep is activated to extend the knee. And then back to the posterior part of the leg, the calf is activated, preventing further dorsiflexion in the ankle. So this calf muscle is active to help push the foot downwards into the ground. Another cue in this stance that is used in Santi among different, depending on the lineage or teacher, is the cue to spread the floor with the feet. So basically, the front foot or leg is pushing forwards while the rear leg is pulling backwards. And this cueing, this action will have an effect on what muscles are activated in the leg, and they will differ because of the direction of the push and pull. This will also, the position of the feet will also affect which muscles are activated. Let's first start with the action of pulling the foot backwards in this spreading of the floor action. Now, the muscles which are activated will depend on the angle and position of the knee, whether it's internally or externally rotated. Now, the case we'll start off first is where the knee is somewhat internally rotated, mostly straight in a neutral position with the hip. So pulling back is pulling straight back, and this will activate the glutes, hamstrings, and calf muscles. Now, the glutes are activated because pulling the foot back is getting the leg to try and create extension. So the glutes are contracting isometrically since there's no movement in this posture in place. And then the calves are contracting also isometrically, pushing against the floor as the foot tries to plantar flex. Now, the hamstrings are an interesting case because previously I just stated that the quadriceps are activated since the weight is on the rear leg, and the quadriceps are activated to prevent further knee flexion. However, the hamstrings also can be activated with the knee in flexion as they connect between the pelvis and the tibia, and the pelvis and the femur, depending on which exact muscle you're referring to that's in the hamstrings. So since the tibia and the femur are not moving, they're in place, the hamstrings are contracting and pulling down the pelvis, or pulling it into posterior pelvic tilt. And that also goes along with the cueing of pulling or pushing, pointing the tailbone down, or even tucking it underneath the body. This co-contraction of both the muscles in the front and rear of the leg is not unusual. If you look at EMGs of a person doing a squat, you will see activation of both the quadriceps and the hamstrings during such an exercise, and it's for similar reasons. Now we'll move on to analyzing the muscles that are activated in pushing the front foot forward against the ground. So now here we have the opposite side of the leg mostly activated. It's hard to tell whether the psoas or iliopsoas is activated or not, but that muscle is a hip flexor. So we can assume maybe that there is tension in the iliopsoas muscle, which is the iliacus and psoas muscles together, that are would be isometrically contracted to pull the leg, the hip into flexion. Likewise, the quadriceps muscles will be activated, trying to extend the knee, and then the tibialis anterior, or the muscles in the front of the calf along the shin, are activated. And this one's an interesting case because the muscles here you would assume would be the calf pushing down into the ground, but I think in this case this motion resembles more like walking backwards or a reverse sled pull, where you're walking backwards, pulling a heavy object, and your leg is pushing forward, away down and away from, or forward away from the ground, and you're actually trying to prevent the heel from raising up too much. So the tibialis might be eccentrically contracting, but I guess in this case it would be isometrically contracting, since there is no movement in this position. The contraction of the tibialis anterior could be debatable. I'd love to get an EMG reading on this during this stance, with pushing, spreading the floor, and not spreading the floor, and just to see and confirm what is activated. It's quite possible that both the front muscles on the front of the leg and on the rear of the leg, so the calf muscles and the tibialis muscle, may be co-contracting. Now, in addition to spreading the feet, there's also another cue that's often used, which is grabbing the floor with the toes, and basically almost like creating a suction cup with the feet. Now, this cue is very similar to what's an exercise used in physical therapy called short foot, which is basically the same action, where you try to make your foot shorter by drawing in the toes and the heel towards each other. And this works the intrinsic muscles in the foot, which are layered on the bottom of your soles of the feet. Now, this exercise has been shown to improve what's called the medial longitudinal arch in the foot, and that I will show here. There we go, the medial longitudinal arch, which is the arch that is closer to the inside part of the foot, and going from front to back. And we see here there's a study of the short foot exercise on quality movement and flexibility in amateur runners on the NIH website. And we see here in section 4.4, plantar short foot muscles enhance longitudinal arch and allow to maintain proper relations between the heel and heads of the first and fifth metatarsals, provide foot stability and flexibility for shock absorption. You can read through the study. It has some other things were addressed and mentioned, but we see in this Santi stance that the intrinsic muscles of the foot themselves to help improve the medial longitudinal arch are activated as well.